I'm hoping that we'll get to a point where we'll have a whole influx and ecosystem of African-created apps that are contextually relevant, that can compete with, like TikTok in Asia, for example, that the new generation will aspire to use and derive the same pleasure that they do from internationally created ones.
Is there still a capacity problem? When I look at maps of the sheer amount of data that can move in and out of places, it looks like for a home of over 1 billion people, Africa is still not well serviced with high-speed, high-capacity data streams.
Definitely. I mean, internet penetration is still pretty low. We still have globally about close to 1 million people coming online every single year. But while that might be looked at as a negative trait, it actually presents this amazing opportunity to contextualize a new version of the internet every single year for a different audience. Like imagine what it was like the first time you came online. And imagine what it must be like for someone now to come online with where we are now in this AI zeitgeist, and like everything is blowing up. So close to 80% of Africans either have access to or own a mobile phone, and that is the primary device used to access the internet as well. So lots of innovations that happen in the African continent that rely on an internet connection have to not even cater to, they have to be made for a mobile device and then scale to other devices, not the other way around, as is usually the case. So that's definitely interesting. And considering how smartphones as well have proliferated from what was initially just the iPhone to all these lower end devices that still are able to perform the same tasks as most of the high end devices as well. It means more people have access to devices that can do amazing things for very low costs as well.
Are data plans affordable if you're in KwaZulu-Natal?
No. Internet, especially in South Africa, is extremely expensive. You find, I was reading an article actually last night, families will spend close to 22% of their monthly household budget on communications, which includes data and, of course, calling airtime, as we call it. And that definitely hinders a lot of opportunities for innovation that relies on the internet. But what that does is starts to shape people's interactions with the internet and their relationship with the internet, right? So they're not even creators anymore. They're just consumers of what is affordable at the time. And yeah, it's an interesting dance to watch across the continent. There's different ways that this is being done, but cost is a huge factor in what can and cannot be done.
Have there been attempts to regulate content, regulate the free trading of content and information between individual citizens?
Of course. I will speak about my home country in Zimbabwe, for example. When the soft coup happened on the previous leader, Robert Mugabe, there was an internet blackout for a bit. And whenever there's protests as well, there's always efforts to limit the spread of conversations. That will always be the case in countries where governments have a little more of and I don't use the word lightly, a little more of a despotic role in how they preside over the people by which they were appointed. And it would be interesting to see how AI can help communities and individuals circumvent these limitations posed by governments. I know even outside of the AI space, VPNs and all these other tools allow people to at least be able to continue conversations and gather support for causes.
As a practical day-to-day matter, when you give the availability of the internet to a villager in the Eastern Cape, what changes about their life? What changes about the possibilities?
Imagine coming online for the first time right now. The internet is so mature now. I think definitely an advantage of coming online would be access to a wider pool of knowledge. It's just incredible now to just open your device and to know what something is almost immediately, as long as you know what to, of course, search for it. It'll definitely change the knowledge economy where you'd initially have had to rely on the old man in the village for all this information on what to do if you have a headache and your nose is stuffy. You can now just open your phone and do that. So it'll change those kinds of relationship dynamics that rely on an exchange of information. But most importantly, it'll allow individuals to be part of a global conversation, whether they know it or not, by just simply participating in it.
Well, one thing Africa has had no shortage of is old leaders.
Yes,
who never know when it's time to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Some of them may look at what's made possible by the internet, political organization, exchange of quote-unquote dangerous ideas.
Yeah.
And with the arrival of the Chinese in large numbers, may say, instead of opening a shop where everybody learns how to code, maybe I should call my Chinese partners and find out how you turn off the internet, or censor it, or keep certain words from not appearing on it, and so on. Do you worry about that?
I think it can go from, that sentiment can come from many places as well. It's just unfortunate that right now it's just coming from a specific country. I do worry about it, and especially considering the nature of investment on the African continent and what African leaders do with that kind of investment. There's actually a big conversation happening now around Chinese loans and what it really means to take those kinds of loans and what the implications are for your nation's ability to control its external ports and many other important parts of infrastructure. Censorship is a big deal. I do think that any government that is even thinking about those kinds of conversations is already doing other things to suppress the people. It's just a bit of a buzzy thing to speak about censorship right now, but there's so many ways that governments suppress people on the continent that are not as documented as that is, but it's a symptom of bad governance.
Africa will be the home of workers in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, strong, ready to go, put in a day's work. This must be a very exciting time to be a young African.
Yeah, it just depends on what exactly it is that we're doing, right? I've noted with concern like the number of code academies rising on the continent and what they equip young people with, because we're in danger actually of turning into what China is for manufacturing, what coding is for technology. And we need an equal push as well for creators on the continent. I mean, we still have, in artificial intelligence, incredible biases in technologies that will affect, ultimately, human lives. You know, how are you training data sets on individuals' faces that are not well trained on the faces of people of color, yet those data science models will be used on drone technology, for example. It's those kinds of conversations. We need people in those kinds of rooms, not so much on the technology production floor as is currently being pushed as the agenda. And I understand why, and it's because, we're going to have a very large workforce population segment, but we need a crop of creators as well.
And what does a just, not just a productive, not just a creative, but a just set of outcomes look like for AI in Africa?
I would say generally with anything, it's happiness, right? I know for the most part we look at the benefits to communities and all that as being a set of like structural changes, like bringing meanings and whatnot. But what it is what does it do to the quality of life of people? Anything that doesn't add to it is just meaningless noise, right? So as long as it makes the quality of life of people in the communities which it is serving better, then it's gone.